Now, especially for Renata, I know you're new to our group. So what we normally do is we kind of start with a little greeting activity, and then we talk about an expression for the day. So I usually choose an expression that we can talk about, learn from, and of course, think about how we can apply it to our own life. So last week, I was doing an activity and someone mentioned this expression. So I thought, okay, this might be a good expression for us to start with. And you might want to think about maybe you have the same expression or something similar in your language. So the expression is comparing apples to oranges. So comparing apples to oranges is when we try to compare two things that may seem to be similar. So for example, these things are both fruit, right? Apples and oranges are fruit. But in reality, they are actually different. So they look and taste different. So part of the problem is sometimes when people try to compare things, they might think that they're comparing similar things. Oh, these situations are the same. But other people might disagree and say, no, those are apples and oranges. Those are not the same thing. They may look similar, but they're not the same. So again, maybe you have something similar to this in your language. Now, we use this expression a lot in the United States. So for example, when I was looking for something to share, I usually have, again, for those of you who might be new, I usually share some cartoon or something. So this is from a popular comic strip called Dilbert. So this is in the newspaper and this has been around for a while. So the idea here is, I'm going to read through the panels, but just to let you know, this the Dilbert comic strip takes place in the workplace. But the basic idea is that the person who does this comic strip, he thinks that the workplace is kind of a place where people will just waste time. You know, nothing good happens in the workplace. It's just for people who are kind of bored, or that the workplace is kind of a crazy place and nobody really does anything. So maybe you feel the same way. But if you notice here, I'm going to kind of go through each panel pretty quickly here. So in the middle, this is the boss. So the boss here, he's in a meeting. Now Dilbert is the guy on the left. So this is Dilbert here. Okay, and this is one of Dilbert's co-workers. So, and Dilbert's coworker, he really doesn't like work. He thinks it's kind of again, a kind of a crazy place. So the boss here, they're in the meeting. So the boss says, you can't compare apples and oranges. Okay, and the next panel, Dilbert says, that's clearly wrong because you just compared them and you declared them to be different. So what he's saying is, of course, you can compare these things. You can compare anything. But then notice Dilbert's coworker says, apples and oranges are both foods that grow on trees. Yeah, they are both foods, right? So he says it would be totally valid to compare them nutritionally. Yeah, they're both full of nutrition, right? Vitamins. Then notice Dilbert. Dilbert says, I've noticed that a lot of what comes out of your mouth makes no sense. And then the boss says, you sound like my wife. And then Dilbert's coworker says, you can't compare your wife to your subordinate. Subordinate means like employee. That's apples and oranges. So then finally the boss is like, what is happening here? And then notice he says, I don't know, but I wouldn't compare it to work. So if you notice, the basic idea here is he tried to compare something in the meeting, and really the point of the comic is that nobody wanted to talk about the topic. Instead, they just wanted to talk about other things. So anyway, I found the comic strip kind of funny because sometimes this is like the workplace, right? We don't really want to do any work. We just want to waste time. So in this case, he's trying to compare two things. And so suddenly you notice people are disagreeing, right, about this comparison. Well, that leads me to our chat question of the day. So again, what I want you to think about here this morning, and actually, I think looking at our group, I think we have, let's see, it looks like we've got enough participants. I think what I'll do is maybe we will use the breakout rooms. So I'll explain that in just a moment. But let's go ahead and look at my question. So as you know, being a human, really, we often tend to make a lot of comparisons. Now, the formal term for this is called an analogy. An analogy is when we try to compare things, right? So my question is thinking about that making comparisons is a very natural thing for humans, but it's often very difficult to do in reality. So again, think about the characteristics or features of an idea that might seem obvious to some people. So for example, they're apples, they're both fruit, right? But they're often confusing to other people and may even be disputed. So in other words, they might disagree. Yeah, they're both fruit, but they're completely different fillings. Again, apples are red, oranges are, orange. They're different tastes, different flavors. So, my question really to the group here today, I actually have kind of two questions that I want you to think about. So, the first question I think is a fairly common thing to think about. Why do we make comparisons? Why do you think we do this? And why do you think it's such a common practice? Okay. And then our second question is, what things in life do people frequently compare? Okay. Now, maybe you know what? Maybe we won't use the breakout rooms. Maybe we'll just talk about these things here together. So I'm going to open it up here. If you want to turn on your mics, let's start with that first question. Why do you think people make comparisons? I mean, think about yourself. Why do you compare things? So, who would like to start? Who would like to explain why do you think people make comparisons? Here. So yeah, so again, our expression today is comparing apples to oranges. So just remember that making comparisons is a very difficult thing. And I'll be honest, I think a lot of people are not very good at making comparisons at first because they often want to focus on how something looks from the outside. So again, if you think about this expression is talking about the danger of trying to compare things that may look similar, but in truth, they might actually be different. And I think the key to understanding this expression is experience. It's difficult. Children make comparisons, but those comparisons are often wrong. Now, the truth is, adults make comparisons, and we're often wrong too. Making comparisons is an easy thing to do, but it's also a very difficult thing to do correctly. Now, before we leave this topic altogether, real quickly, in the chat box, if you want to use the chat box, just tell me, do you have an expression like this in your language? Is it the same? Or is it different? Do you have something like this in your language, comparing something that are not similar? Do you guys have anything like that? You can tell me in the chat box either yes or no. So I was curious if you have anything like this in your language. So if you want to use the chat box, you can tell me if you have anything similar to this. But again, in English, the expression is comparing apples and oranges, trying to compare things that look similar, but in reality are actually different. Okay? So maybe you can tell me if you just, Tasia says she just needs to remember what it is. Okay. But again, you can tell me real quickly in the chat box because we're going to use the chat box again in just a moment. Okay, guys. So with the last few 20 minutes or so of our chat time, I'm going to take a few minutes to cover a couple of things. So first off, we are in a new session, which means we're in a new class. So I think everyone here has joined the new Google Classroom for this session. So that's the first thing I wanted to say is I think everyone here has joined the Google class. After we're done here today, I'm going to be posting our first activity. And that first activity is a reading activity. Now, I'm not going to talk about the activity yet. Instead, what I'd like to do is go ahead and do a little vocabulary activity first. So the idea here is I'm going to introduce some vocabulary words that we're going to see in this week's readings. Now, again, we're going to use the chat box for this activity, so no microphones, okay? So just the chat box, so that way everybody will get a chance to answer these questions as soon as they can, okay? Now, the idea is I'm going to show a new word on the screen. Now, you may know this word already, but then I'll have a question about the word on the right side. And what I want you to do is to answer that question in the chat box, okay? All right, so here is our first word. Okay, so you should see it now on the screen. Our first word is afford. Afford. So afford means to be able to pay for something. Okay, so here's our first question for the chat box. What is something that you would really like to have, but you can't afford at this moment? Okay, so this is a word that we associate with school. So tuition. Tuition. So tuition is money that is paid to a school for the right to study there. Now, over on the right side, the average tuition and fees at an in-state public college in the United States is about $10,116. This is from this current year. And then if you compare that to a private university, so $36,801 at a private university. So what I was curious is, in thinking about in your country, and again, we're thinking universities, public and private, how do those numbers compare to the cost of tuition in your countries? So for example, you don't have to tell me the exact number, but is that more expensive, less expensive? Is your country free for some universities? Tell us in the chat box. How do those costs compare? Okay, we got one more, I think. So here's our next one, stress. So I know maybe you know this word, but stress is a state of mental tension and worry caused by problems in your life and work. Now I know you're taking online classes with me right now, but I want you to think about just in general. Do you think taking classes online is more stressful than taking classes in person? So tell us why or why not. And again, don't really count what we're doing here necessarily, but think about just in general or next week. So the reading, once again, is from Voice of America. So some of you might remember that in the last session, we did a Voice of America article. And the title of the article is, Could Coronavirus Lead to a Decrease in International Students in America? So as you can see, this article was written on May 16th. So yes, some things have changed even in the last couple of weeks. But what I would like for you to do for next time, I have posted the article in our Google Classroom. So what I would like to do real quickly is I'm going to jump over to the Google Classroom. Okay. Now, at this point, I think everyone again has joined the Google Class. So this is what it looks like on the computer. And of course, you can also use it on your phone. But in the classwork section, so again, if you're new to Google Classroom, and I think at least I know Renata might be new for this, maybe your kids used it, I don't know. But for classwork, again, what I normally do is post assignments in the classwork stream. So once we're finished here this evening, so once my evening class is finished, I will be assigning you the first assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it up here on the screen very quickly. Okay. So the idea here is, hopefully you can see this on your screen, is that for your first activity, I have the article listed here, could coronavirus lead to the decrease, blah, blah, blah. I've also downloaded the audio of the reading. So that way, if you want to listen to the reading while you're reading it at the same time, you can do that. Or if you're doing it on the computer, in the article, if you noticed in the article, you can click and listen to the reading here. So you can actually listen to it and follow along and read what's on the screen. Okay. And then I've also included a list of the vocabulary. I'm going to click on this for just a moment. And as you can see, some of the words we talked about here this morning are on the list. Now, once again, what I have done is I've included a link. If you want to listen to the words and the definitions, you can click on this link and you can listen and read along. And again, many of these are words that you may have already seen or already know. So words like pandemic and outbreak and so on. But of course, these are words that you're going to find in the article. So if you want to review those words and listen to those words and definitions, you can click here and listen to those words as well. So read the article. If you want to listen to it, the audio is here. These are the vocabulary words that you'll see in the article. And then finally, I do have a little question, a little quiz, so to speak, that I want you to do after you read the article. So to click on the quiz, okay, it looks like this. Now, you don't have to put your email address anymore in the form. You only have to put your name. And then I have just a few questions that I would like for you to answer. And then when you're finished, you click on submit. All of these questions are based on the reading. So you have to do the reading, and then you have to do this little quiz when you're finished. Okay, so again, I will be assigning that this evening after my evening class, and it will be due by next Wednesday. So you'll have 1 week to do the activity. So it probably won't take you that long. So, and I'm sure everyone here will do it immediately right on Thursday, or maybe you'll do it Tuesday night. Okay, well, anyway, so if you're new to the Google Classroom, again, the Google Stream here, this is where I post messages and information, and some people have posted greetings on the stream. And then the idea is classwork can be found here. Now, if you notice, I also have a heading for TOEFL workshops. So I want to talk about that real quickly before we finish here this morning. So the reading is what we're going to be doing. So once again, just to show everybody here on the screen, in our new Google class, make sure you've joined the classroom. So everybody at this point, you guys have done that. Review the vocabulary document. So again, I've included that in that assignment. Read the article about the coronavirus and the international students, and then do the little quiz that's attached. Okay. Now, I want to go ahead and talk about what's next for our session. So again, I think most people here have participated in the Monday chat. So Renata, if you're not familiar, we also do have a short chat that I do on Mondays. So I do it twice a day. I've got one called Lunchtime with Mr. John, and then I also do an evening one. The Lunchtime with Mr. John is at 12 to 12:30, so it's only 30 minutes. And then we do a little evening chat. It's the same topic, but we do one in the evening from 7 to 7:30. So maybe you can join us for the 12, or maybe you can join us for the 7 o'clock one. Wednesdays, so like today, will be our high intermediate chat. And then for select Thursdays, so again, this is not going to be every Thursday. So last session, students indicated an interest in learning a little bit more about the TOEFL. So last session, I did a TOEFL writing workshop. So for the summer session, I'm going to do 3 workshops on the reading, speaking, and listening sections. Okay, so the first one is going to be on Thursday, June 4th, and that one will be for the reading skills. Now, the idea is just to kind of introduce the TOEFL reading section to you. So again, next year, if I have some interest, we might actually teach more about some TOEFL skills. But for now, these workshops are kind of just introductions. So I want to share with everybody that one change I'm doing this session is there are going to be 2 sessions. There's going to be a morning session, 10 to 11, but I'm also going to do it again from 7 to 8. So guys, if you really want to learn more about the TOEFL, it's just, again, each workshop is just 1 hour. So the reading one is next. And again, I'll do one in the morning and one in the evening because some of the students were hoping to have morning as well. So again, on Thursday, June 4th, we'll do the reading skills. On Thursday, June 18th, we'll do the speaking skills. And the speaking skills will actually be kind of interesting because on the week of June 22nd, I'm going to be scheduling some individual speaking activities in case you want to practice with me. So what I'll do on the Thursday, the 18th, is introduce the speaking section and then actually give you a chance the week of the 22nd if you want to practice a little bit. And I think everybody here would really benefit from the speaking section. Again, because that's what you're doing every day, but it might be a an opportunity to try it. And then finally, if you'll notice, we are going to go into July just a little bit. I am going to do July 2nd on that Thursday, the listening skills section. So to kind of get close here to the finish, our next online chat will be Wednesday, June 3rd. So it'll be 10 to 11 and again 7 to 8. So again, I want to thank everybody for showing up here. But let's go ahead now as we are finishing to talk about the sign in and sign out procedure. Now, last session, I sent 2 emails, or I would send 1 email with 2 links. Okay, I think I figured out an easier way to do this. So now I'm going to send you right now, and I'm going to post it in the chat box, and I'm going to post it in your email. It's a new form. Now, pay very close attention. So in the form, you're going to put your email address, your full name, and the time that you joined the chat this morning. Okay, not the time you're leaving, but the time you joined. So for example, did you join us at 10 a.m.? Did you join us at 10:05? It doesn't matter, but you can tell me what time you joined. Okay, now I'm going to show you the form right now. So let me pull it up here. Let me find it. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Sorry, here it is. Okay, so it looks like this. Okay, so it's going to say summer 2020 online sign in. So you put your email address, you type your full name, and you put the time you sign in, not the time you sign out, because the form will automatically create the time that you leave, the time that you sign out. Okay, but here's the thing: you must fill out this form now. So when I send it to you, you've got to do it now, and you've got to tell me the time you signed in. So guys.